The massive research vessel Harmony glided through the silent darkness of the Andromeda sector, its sleek, metallic hull reflecting distant starlight. Yoonji Park stood motionless at the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the endless cosmic expanse. She was different from most researchers. Where others saw data and calculations, Yoonji saw potential connections. Her colleagues often joked that she could communicate with rocks if given enough time. At 32, she had already revolutionized human-alien communication protocols. With her unique approach, the ship's sensors suddenly hummed with an unusual frequency. Something was approaching. Something definitely not human. Yoonji's heart raced, but her expression remained calm. Years of training had taught her to control her external reactions. A crystalline structure emerged from the darkness. Unlike traditional spacecraft designs, this vessel seemed to pulse with an inner light, shifting colors like a living organism. Its movements were fluid, almost organic, defying traditional understanding of space navigation. "Incoming transmission," announced the ship's AI in a neutral tone. Yoonji stepped closer to the communication console. The signal wasn't using standard communication frequencies. Instead, it resembled a complex mathematical sequence mixed with what seemed like emotional wavelengths. Most scientists would have called for translation algorithms. Yoonji simply closed her eyes and listened. She understood communication wasn't just about words, but about intention and feeling. The alien vessel moved closer, its movements precise yet somehow graceful. Yoonji could sense something watching her, not with hostility, but with profound curiosity. Her research team, comprised of Sung-Ho Lee and Hyejin Choi, gathered behind her. They knew Yoonji had a reputation for unconventional first contact scenarios. Some colleagues considered her methods borderline mystical. Others saw her as a communication genius. "Prepare standard greeting protocols," Sung-Ho suggested, his fingers hovering over multiple communication panels. Yoonji raised her hand, signaling him to wait. "Not yet," she whispered, her eyes still closed. The alien vessel's outer shell began transforming, creating intricate geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm. It was communicating, but not through traditional language. Suddenly, a wave of emotional energy swept through the observation deck. Most humans would have felt overwhelmed, but Yoonji remained centered. She recognized this as a form of empathetic scanning. The aliens were trying to understand human emotional landscapes. Her mind became a calm ocean, deliberately projecting feelings of peace, curiosity, and openness. No fear, no aggression, just pure, genuine human emotion. The alien vessel responded. Its crystalline structure shifted from deep blue to soft green, a color transformation that seemed to indicate a positive emotional response. Hyejin watched in astonishment. "What's happening?" she whispered. "First contact," Yoonji replied softly, her eyes now open but still focused on the alien craft. Minutes passed. The vessel maintained its proximity, continuing its color transformations. Each shift seemed to communicate complex emotional states that human technology couldn't fully decode. Sung-Ho checked the ship's systems. "No aggressive signals detected. They're studying us?" Yoonji nodded. "More than studying. They're experiencing us." The alien vessel represented the Lumina Collective, a civilization known for their advanced emotional intelligence and technological prowess. Unlike human approaches that relied on verbal or mathematical communication, the Lumina understood connections through vibrational and emotional exchanges. As the observation deck remained silent, Yoonji realized this encounter would change everything humanity understood about interstellar communication. This wasn't just a meeting between two species. It was a profound emotional dialogue. The Harmony's crew watched in complete silence, witnessing a moment that would be recorded in human history as the most unique first contact scenario ever documented. Yoonji Park smiled slightly. Her life's work had prepared her for this exact moment, a bridge between two completely different forms of intelligent life, connected not by words, but by the universal language of genuine emotion. The research facility hummed with anticipation. Yoonji Park sat across from Jae-sung Kim, the Lumina Collective's primary diplomatic representative. The room was designed to be neutral. White walls, soft lighting, and minimal furniture that suggested openness and transparency. Jae-sung looked human-like but wasn't. His skin had a slight iridescent quality, shifting between pale blue and soft silver depending on the light. His eyes were different, deep pools that seemed to look through Yoonji rather than at her. "We want to understand human emotional capacity," Jae-sung stated, his voice a melodic blend of sounds that seemed to vibrate with mathematical precision. Yoonji knew this was more than a simple test. The Lumina Collective believed emotions could be mapped, controlled, and engineered. Humans represented something entirely different, unpredictable, wild, beautifully chaotic. The first probe began simply. A holographic screen appeared showing multiple scenarios. Each scene was designed to trigger specific emotional responses. A child crying, a soldier returning home, a person losing everything. Most humans would have been overwhelmed. Yoonji remained, calm, her breathing steady. Jae-sung watched carefully. The Lumina had advanced technology that could read emotional wavelengths with incredible precision. But Yoonji was different. Her emotions didn't follow expected patterns. When the image of the crying child appeared, most would expect sadness. Instead, Yoonji's emotional response was complex, a mixture of protective instinct, remembered childhood pain, and hope. It wasn't a single emotion, but an intricate web of feelings. The Lumina representative looked confused. Their technology showed multiple emotional layers that shouldn't logically exist together. "Explain your response," Jae-sung requested, his voice carrying a hint of frustration. Yoonji smiled. "Emotions aren't mathematics. They're living experiences." The next test became more intense. The holographic screen showed a war scene, destruction, pain, human suffering. The Lumina expected a predictable emotional breakdown or complete emotional shutdown. Instead, Yoonji's emotional response was a strange combination of anger, compassion, and resilience. She didn't just feel the pain, she processed it as a potential for healing and understanding. Jae-sung realized they were dealing with something unprecedented. Human emotions weren't a problem to be solved, but a complex ecosystem of feelings. "Your species confuses us," he admitted, his iridescent skin shifting to a deep blue that suggested confusion and curiosity. Sung-ho and Hee-jin watched from another room, monitoring the entire interaction. They knew Yoonji was doing more than representing humanity. She was redefining how intelligent life might understand emotional experience. The third probe was the most challenging. The holographic screen showed personal loss, a scenario designed to break emotional boundaries. Person losing everything they loved in a single moment. Jae-sung expected total emotional collapse. But Yoonji's response was extraordinary. She didn't just feel the loss, she transformed it. Her emotional wavelength showed resilience, the potential for rebuilding, the human capacity to find hope in complete darkness. The Lumina's emotional scanning technology began to malfunction. It couldn't process the complexity of her response. "Impossible," Jae-sung whispered. Yoonji understood something fundamental about human experience that the Lumina couldn't comprehend. Emotions weren't weakness. They were a survival mechanism, a way of processing and transforming difficult experiences. As the test concluded, Jae-sung looked genuinely uncertain. The Lumina Collective had encountered many species, but none like humans. Their emotional intelligence wasn't about control, it was about adaptation, growth, and unexpected resilience. "We need to understand more," he said, his voice a mix of challenge and genuine curiosity. Yoonji knew this was just the beginning. Humanity was about to teach an advanced civilization something profound about the nature of emotional experience. The room remained silent, but the air was charged with the potential of a revolutionary discovery that would change everything humans and Lumina understood about emotional intelligence. The research facility transformed into a complex emotional laboratory. Strange machines with crystalline structures surrounded Yoonji. each designed to measure human emotional responses in ways never attempted before. Jae-sung watched carefully, his iridescent skin reflecting the soft laboratory lights. The Lumina had designed psychological trials that had broken every previous species they had encountered. Humans would be different, but how different? The first trial involved emotional memory reconstruction. A device would project memories, forcing the subject to relive intense emotional experiences. Most species would collapse under such pressure. Most would either shut down completely or experience total mental breakdown. Yoonji sat calmly, her hands resting on a smooth, metallic surface. She understood this wasn't just a test. This was a conversation between two different forms of intelligence. The memory machine activated. Suddenly, Yoonji was 12 years old again. She remembered the day her father died, a moment of profound loss that had shaped her entire life. Most would expect tears, pain, total emotional destruction. But Yoonji did something unexpected. She didn't just relive the memory. She analyzed it. She found the love within the pain. She transformed her grief into understanding, into growth. Jae-sung's scanning equipment began producing strange readings. The emotional wavelengths didn't match any known pattern. Where there should have been destruction, there was reconstruction. Fascinating, he whispered. The second trial was even more complex. The machine would introduce multiple simultaneous emotional scenarios, joy, pain, fear, hope, all happening at the same moment. Previous test subjects had gone mad within seconds. Yoonji's brain processed these emotions like a complex symphony. She didn't fight the emotions. She didn't try to control them. She became a conductor, guiding these emotional experiences with incredible skill. Sung-ho and Hee-jin watched from another room, their own monitoring equipment showing impossible data streams. Yoonji was rewriting everything they understood about human emotional capacity. The Lumina had expected to find weakness. Instead, they discovered something extraordinary, emotional flexibility that defied all technological understanding. The third trial pushed human limits even further. The machine would introduce scenarios designed to break emotional boundaries, impossible choices, situations with no clear moral resolution. A holographic scenario appeared. Saving one life would mean losing 10. Choosing survival would mean abandoning. Fundamental moral principles. Previous tests had shown total psychological collapse. Yoonji's response was beyond fascinating. She didn't just make a choice. She found a third path, a solution that respected both individual life and collective survival. Her emotional intelligence wasn't about selecting the least painful option, but creating unexpected solutions. Jae-sung realized they were witnessing something revolutionary. Humans weren't just surviving emotional challenges. They were transforming them. Your species doesn't just experience emotions, he said slowly. You negotiate with them. The final trial was the most intense. The machine would introduce a complete emotional simulation. Generations of human suffering, hope, struggle, and resilience compressed into a single moment. Most beings would be destroyed by such an experience. Yoonji would either break completely or demonstrate something unprecedented. She closed her eyes. The simulation began. Centuries of human experience rushed through her consciousness. Wars, discoveries, loves, losses, moments of incredible darkness and breathtaking light. A complete emotional history of humanity compressed into seconds. The Lumina monitoring equipment started malfunctioning. They couldn't process what was happening. When Yoonji opened her eyes, she was changed, but not broken. She had processed centuries of emotional experience and found meaning, not pain, not destruction. Understanding. Jae-sung understood then that humans were not just another species to be studied. They were teachers of a profound emotional technology more advanced than any machine. We have much to learn, he said quietly. The laboratory remained silent, charged with the potential of a revolutionary discovery that would change everything the Lumina understood about emotional intelligence. The Lumina research station orbited a distant blue-green planet. its crystalline structure pulsing with an uncertain rhythm. Something fundamental was changing within their civilization, and Jae-sung knew he was at the center of this transformation. Yoonji's emotional demonstrations had done more than challenge Lumina understanding. They had introduced a virus of possibility into their rigid technological society. Lumina leadership gathered in their central chamber, a massive room where decisions had been mathematically calculated for thousands of generations. Today was different. Today, emotions were not a problem to be solved, but a potential to be explored. "The human approach challenges everything," announced the senior council member, his iridescent skin shifting between shades of silver and blue, a clear sign of internal conflict. Jae-sung stepped forward. He carried recordings of Yoonji's emotional trials, each moment a testament to human complexity. Where the Lumina saw chaos, he now saw extraordinary potential. The first signs of transformation began subtly. Lumina researchers started asking questions they had never considered before. What if emotions weren't mathematical equations? What if feelings were living, breathing experiences? Young Lumina scientists began studying human emotional records. They discovered something shocking. Human resilience wasn't about avoiding pain, but about moving through it. Each emotional challenge became an opportunity for growth. Hae-jin Choi, working alongside Sung-ho Lee, developed communication protocols that bridged the vast emotional differences. They weren't just translating words. They were teaching a new language of emotional understanding. The Lumina medical systems were the first to change. Instead of suppressing emotional responses, they began designing treatments that acknowledged emotional complexity. Mental health was no longer about control, but about genuine healing. Jae-sung watched this transformation with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The Lumina had always believed in technological perfection. Now they were learning that true intelligence was about adaptability. Yoonji continued her work, unaware of the profound changes she was triggering. During one communication session, she shared a simple story about her grandmother, a tale of love, loss, and unexpected hope. The Lumina researchers who studied this story found something extraordinary. It wasn't just a narrative. It was a blueprint for emotional survival. Political systems within the Lumina civilization began shifting. Leadership was no longer selected through pure mathematical calculations. Emotional intelligence became a critical factor. Leaders were now chosen for their ability to understand, not just compute. Conflicts that had existed for generations started finding unexpected resolutions. The Lumina were learning that understanding was more powerful than winning. Technological innovations emerged that blended emotional insight with scientific precision. Machines began developing empathy protocols. Communication systems started recognizing emotional nuances. "We are becoming something new," Jae-sung told his closest colleagues. The transformation wasn't easy. Many older Lumina resisted these changes. They saw emotional flexibility as a weakness. But younger generations embraced this new understanding with remarkable speed. Yoonji represented more than a researcher. She had become a symbol of a different way of experiencing intelligence. Her ability to find hope in complexity was teaching an entire civilization how to truly connect. Sung-ho and Hae-jin continued documenting every moment of this extraordinary cultural exchange. They knew they were witnessing something historic. The moment when two completely different forms of intelligence found a common language. The Lumina research station continued its silent orbit, now pulsing with a different energy. No longer just a place of cold calculation, it had become a center of emotional exploration. Jae-sung looked out at the distant stars, understanding that the universe was far more complex than any mathematical equation. Emotions were not a problem to be solved, but a journey to be experienced. The transformation had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. As distant stars continued their ancient dance, a civilization was learning the most important lesson of all, that true intelligence is not about controlling experience, but about understanding it. 10 years had passed since the first encounter between humans and the Lumina Collective. The galaxy looked different now, transformed by an unexpected revolution of emotional understanding. Yoonji Park stood on the observation deck of the Central Lumina diplomatic station, watching starships from multiple civilizations move like intricate dance partners. Her work had changed everything. The Lumina had requested comprehensive human assistance in emotional rehabilitation. What started as a scientific mission had become something far more profound, a complete cultural transformation. Human. Researchers worked alongside Lumina scientists, teaching them about emotional complexity. They weren't just sharing knowledge. They were helping an entire civilization rediscover what it meant to truly feel. Jae-sung Kim, now a senior diplomatic representative, approached Yoonji. His appearance had changed. Where once he was a rigid, mathematical being, now he moved with a newfound fluidity, his skin reflecting emotional wavelengths previously impossible for his species. "We are grateful," he said, his voice carrying layers of meaning that went beyond simple words. The Lumina medical systems had completely transformed. Emotional healing became as important as physical treatment. Hospitals were no longer cold, clinical spaces. They became centers of genuine understanding and support. Younger Lumina generations looked at their historical records with new eyes. They saw their previous existence as a form of emotional imprisonment. Now, they celebrated the complexity of feelings. Shia-Jin Choi had developed communication protocols that allowed different species to understand each other's emotional landscapes. What once seemed impossible was now becoming standard galactic practice. The first truly integrated emotional research center opened, bringing together humans, Lumina, and 3 other alien civilizations. It wasn't just a research facility. It was a testament to the power of emotional intelligence. Sung-Ho Lee discovered that human emotional approaches could solve complex interstellar conflicts. Diplomatic missions now included emotional translators who could read the subtle emotional nuances between different species. The Lumina's technological systems began incorporating emotional intelligence. Machines were no longer just tools. They became partners in understanding, capable of genuine empathy. Yoonji reflected on their journey. What had started as a simple research mission had rewritten the rules of interstellar communication. Humans were no longer seen as a young, unpredictable species. They were recognized as emotional pioneers. Political systems across multiple civilizations changed. Leaders were now selected not just for their analytical skills but for their ability to understand and connect emotionally. The galaxy seemed to breathe differently. Conflicts that had existed for generations found unexpected resolutions. Species that once saw each other as threats now approached each other with curiosity and compassion. Jae-sung shared stories of the transformation with younger Lumina researchers. "We thought emotions were a weakness," he would explain. "We discovered they are our greatest strength." Human emotional training became a sought-after skill across multiple civilizations. Universities developed complex programs teaching emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and interspecies empathy. The research center became a beacon of hope. Scientists, diplomats, and researchers from different worlds worked together, united by a common understanding that true intelligence goes beyond mathematical calculations. Yoonji's original research papers were now studied like historic documents. Young researchers looked at her work with the same reverence that previous generations had reserved for great scientific discoveries. The transformation wasn't perfect. Some older Lumina still resisted the changes. Some human researchers remained skeptical. But the momentum was unstoppable. As stars continued their ancient dance, something extraordinary had happened. A simple human had taught an entire civilization how to truly feel. Jae-sung approached Eunji, his movements now fluid and graceful. "We are different now," he said, watching the starships move outside. Eunji smiled. She understood that this was more than a scientific achievement. This was a fundamental shift in how intelligent life understood itself. The observation deck remained silent, filled with the quiet promise of a universe learning to feel, to understand, to connect. Somewhere, in the vast darkness of space, a new chapter of galactic history was being written, one emotion at a time.